Okay, let's get started on a new mood and media piece. And I've been playing around with the hybrid inks. And I thought, why don't we do a mood and media piece using the hybrid inks? Okay, now the mood and media series is a series of videos based on this combination of Lakeside Cove Lg, Pines and Rocks, Oak Branch. This one I did use the water pattern, and these reeds down here. 4 of these images can be found in one nature set number 8. The reeds are not included in that one, but if you have nature set 8, you can easily put these oak branches down here if you want kind of a foreground down here as well. It could be a bush as well as a overhanging tree limb type of thing. Or you can just leave it as is, you know, you leave the reeds out of it, but they do provide a nice kind of visual foreground down there in a different texture that's different than the oak branch up there. Okay, that being said, let's get started here, and I want to go with, there's different kind of possibilities that have opened up for me using a somewhat of a more opaque medium. Okay, opaque medium, you know, in kind of contrast to transparent and translucent. Okay, these are really more translucent, but I don't know, they start to get kind of opaque when you start mixing it with the white pigment ink there. Okay, so, okay, now, when I do these things, I mean, I hope one of the things that comes across in these videos is that there's a lot of variations that you can do, and a lot of the compositions that I'm doing, it isn't specific to the media or technique. You can use these techniques that I'm doing with other media. So when I do the sunset type of thing in this piece, I could be doing this with pastels or dye-based inks, whatever, in the same type of thing, but you just go about it a little bit differently, of course, depending on your medium, okay? But it's all about the concept with these, okay? With this one right here, I'm just going for the swatchy background and establishing kind of a light source. In this case, I want it to look somewhat like a sunset. Back in my graphic arts class in high school, we used to call this kind of transitioning tones a split fountain when it came to doing silkscreen printing, okay? And I always like that kind of transition of colors right here. So this is what's kind of new for me. I can kind of come in here and I'm blending that orange, this one right here, into this yellow, and I find that unlike dye-based inks which stain, when I go like this, I'm kind of lifting and blending in some of this previous ink because this lays down here and kind of a little bit more of a surface-oriented type of application than what I'm used to using, you know, throughout most of my stamping life, which is dye-based inks, which absorb into the paper. All right, now I think what I'm using is some sort of a cardstock. I don't know what it used to be. I had this cut and it was on my table. I'm guessing it's a 10-point thickness cardstock. Okay, some kind of clay-coated cardstock. Don't get caught into the brands and whatever. This is one of those that I just, you know, if anything, I never got some kind of recommended brand. I just pulled it off the shelf when I was at the store at some point in time. Okay, so this is going on with this pinkish red, or it's like a fuchsia-y red. It's called Milky Way magenta. Okay, it's magenta. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's magenta. I was going to say it looks more like a kind of a cherry red to me, but when I put it on, kind of in full force, that does look like magenta. But when I'm going like this, it's, I don't know, it looks like some sort of a, I don't know, it's a lighter value of magenta. All right, so you can see this kind of sunset-y type of thing. That's going to be my horizon right there. Okay, and I tell you what, before I go to this, you know, kind of darker value purple, let me go back in. I'm just kind of curious here. I want to see what happens here when I go back to my lighter tone, okay? Lighter value. Take that, and see that? This is what doesn't happen with dye-based inks. I can't go into this kind of redder one and lift some of that color. It's kind of lifting it a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to go in like with something and it's not going to eradicate what I've already laid down, but it does influence it quite a bit. And that's what I'm really having fun, you know, it's just kind of fun to kind of, you know, to not be at this point of no return as I am with dye-based inks. I'm not, don't get me wrong now, I'm not leaving my dye-based inks, but I'm trying to do it kind of a deep dive exploration into this other property of kind of a more surface-oriented application of media that can be manipulated. Okay. All right. Now here's another one. Here's red, or reddish, Mars red. Perfect. All right. So anyway, see that right there? Usually when I do these types of things, I might go back in with dye-based inks and I might add something back into the scheme. But this is really fun to be able to go back to, you know, my lightest color and have it, you know, pretty influential still. Okay, so there's the red. Planetary purple. I'm losing my stuff here. Okay, there's that magenta. I wasn't quite sure. This looks so light to me. I don't have that many colors, I don't know why. Okay, so here, trying to make it a little bit less regular. It goes on so smooth, I want it a little bit more kind of erratic. You know, like striations in the sky. Alright, do that. It's so easy to blend it, you know, so smoothly. Yeah, I want it kind of a little bit more streaky, you know, for that variation. See that right there? That'll look good for a sky like that. It doesn't blend in real good, like let's say the first color, okay, because the paper is so dry. But now that I have these layers here, you see what I mean? It really blends it. I can blend the whole thing and just go right across there because I have a lot of ink sitting on the surface of the cardstock. I wouldn't say it's like sopping wet, but it's no doubt kind of in solution here, so it's allowing me to really see that where I'm kind of making it a little bit streakier. Now here's the thing. I mean, I'm using this just a paper towel here. I haven't even used this with my stylus tools yet. I should. But maybe kind of dabbing around. See, that kind of builds up a little bit more color there if I kind of dab it on there. I've just kind of been using these paper towels just to, I don't know, open things up for, you know, people that might think I can't do that because I don't have, you know, certain applicators. Stylus tools are now kind of off the market. I have a bunch of tips still, but they are no longer making those. All right, let's go back to yellow. Let's see what we do with the yellow in here now. It's quite dark now, isn't it? Okay, let's see. Oh my gosh, yeah, I love that. See that? I can go straight. Can you see that right there? That's a streak into the darkness with the red. It's picking that up, so. See that? It creates that nice kind of glow. Like that. Yeah, I can just streak right back. That's yellow, and it's just wiping off that top layer, but it's kind of applying it too, I think. I'm not sure if I'm just rubbing off or if it's actual applying. It's hard to tell. I think it's both ways, but look at that. See that right there? See that? That's the part that's really fun to do for me, and fun to see happen. Okay, see, with your paper towel, you just kind of refold it and re-wad it up. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of this white here. Yeah, that's what that's meant, you know, to be used as you use these combinations. So now I have like a duller yellow here, so you can get kind of these different types of looks. And I'm kind of getting used to infecting my white, and you just kind of wipe it off afterwards. Kind of getting that little haze in there. I mean, that's for kind of making impressions, having that dual pad like that, but I'm using it for my colors in terms of my color applications. Just because it's there. Oh, now see, here's the thing that I have to learn. So I took that in the darker area like that, and it wiped off here. And then when I went on the lighter area, I was applying kind of a darker streak. So if you don't want that kind of darker streak, what you have to do is you have to kind of keep, you know, refolding it, and then you get your ink, and then you apply it on there, like so. So it kind of starts. You see, there's a transference of ink, you know, as you kind of streak this on, which you kind of just have to be aware of if you don't want it everywhere. Okay, so maybe you have to be a little bit more definitive. I'll go like this, like that, and not take that part and go into the lighter area. So I don't know, a little bit more of a kind of a conscious effort. Okay, now I'm just kind of, see how I'm laying those little white bits down. I don't know, it looks like a little haze or cloudy haze up there to me. I mean, it looked good. There's just, you know, the colors too, but that gives it, I don't know, to me a little bit more dimension maybe. I'm trying to create a little bit more of a glow there because that's kind of the area in general where I'll be placing my Lakeside Cove stamp. You know, and all the other colors on imagery, the images on here, so it's kind of creating this little kind of horizon light And then once I stamp the imagery down there, I'll go back in and readjust. Okay, you know, some additional shadows or something. All right. What is this right here? Asteroid Umber. Looks like a brownish tint, doesn't it? Let me try this one. Okay. I feel weird about tossing this applicator out. We don't toss applicators out all the time, but this is just it's like a half piece of paper towel that I did all that with. And that was, I don't know, 6 colors or something like that. Quite a bit. I mean, you can keep using those ones again if you have like a kind of a dedicated paper towel, you know, for a certain color. You can do that. All right, let me try these other colors here. I don't even know what I have with these colors here. I mean, I can see them right at my table, but I don't know if I've used all of them yet. Okay, I just want to go a little bit darker with this one. Oh, I can't even tell what color that is. Oh, it's like reddish. It's like a rust or something. Reddish kind of rust. It's like a blood red. I love it. Of course, it looks different probably over the top of all these other colors. Yeah, Nebula Rust. Oh wait, no, that's, yeah, this one right here. And this one was the Asteroid Umber. Okay, I'm just going to mix these two, okay? Like that. It's looking very streaky now, isn't it? I keep blowing on this because it's kind of fraying my paper towels when I use this. Okay, let's go with black. Okay. And black will be a good color to use in the sky, as I'll be stamping some bold images over the top of that in black as well, so I like to include it in my kind of lighting scheme just to give things a little bit of continuity. I'll be using black in my shadows, maybe that umber in the shadows as well. Alright, now this is what I'm noticing. This is really getting saturated with ink, so every time I touch this, that ink comes right off. Look at my fingertips like that. So, yeah, just be aware of it. I don't think it's a bad thing. Kind of, I want all that tone on there. Okay, let me grab some of that white again. It's a real kind of back and forth process of application, layering, and kind of a removal. Look at this right in here, how I can go in here and kind of bring that out like that. Alright, now that would be a perfect like desert sunset, wouldn't it? Okay, my gosh, that was a lot more ink. So I thought I was going to use 3, but I don't know. I had other colors that seemed like they could work within that color scheme. Okay, so let's go with this here. It's kind of a shame to cover up a lot of that, but it'll enhance. Okay, so let me see if I can ink this up here without going into that white area. Yeah, it looks like I did. Okay, so in the Lakeside Cove, what I do is I don't color in kind of this area down here. I do sometimes if it's, you know, kind of a darker scene down here, but we have this light down here. So I'm going to kind of wipe off some of these shadows a little bit, reflections. Down here, I'm kind of wiping these off a little bit, and leave them a little bit streakier. There's going to need to be some ink on it, so they should stamp out lighter, but I'll wipe off quite a bit down here, so it'll transition from dark to light down here because it's going from wet to dry. Okay. All right, so this goes roughly. I have to figure out what's top and bottom. I think I like that for my sky. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. All right, plenty of pressure, especially in the middle of your stamp. I've been pleasantly surprised stamping this black hybrid over the top. Sometimes when you're stamping wet into wet, the ink doesn't transfer very quickly, so with dye-based inks, it's like watery into watery, so sometimes you pull it off and it stamped out, you know, you're stamping a really dark black and it, you know, like a vacuum, it just sucks all the ink right off again, and it's not very dark, but this is pretty dark. It really transfers on. I guess it's because it's the same type of ink. Okay, so that is that. How's that for cleaning? I don't know, I should clean it off a little bit better. Okay, their big stamp here. That was Lakeside Cove. So that's just why I need to tone that in a little bit. It's real open, so it's real kind of transparent. We'll anchor these down a little bit more with some additional ink. Okay. Overlap this one by about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. When I have these unmounted stamps like this, it doesn't have the image on the back, but you know, they're meant to be overlapped by like 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, so I mean that's a lot of leeway there. So you don't have to be perfect by any means, just be sufficient, okay? And it's easy to overlap something by, you know, between here and here. I mean, that you can probably go half inch, 3/4 inch. I wouldn't recommend 3/4. That's quite a bit. But with everything else, just really overlap things. You know, I've drawn them to be as user-friendly as possible. It's not my idea to make some kind of, you know, system stamps really hard to use. I mean, what's the fun of that? It kind of goes against the entire kind of reason for designing something, you know, putting like tools of frustration out in the world. You know, they have to be easy to use. And when I'm using the stamps, I certainly want them easy to use. Okay, so we want some foreground here. I have some overhanging oak branch pieces here. Come in like this, and kind of puts this underneath kind of a nice shaded tree overlooking our lake. And in nature, there are, you know, different types of foliage out there, so you can certainly mix this type of overhanging deciduous tree with pine trees, you know. So I didn't ink up this whole area down here because I just knew I wouldn't be using it. Okay. That. And we have our reeds. I'm going to hold off on the reeds, okay, because I want to anchor this down a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at this. All right, you see those rocks down there? I would really recommend allowing this to set up for you before doing what I'm about to do, but I don't want to work on this tomorrow. I want to work on this right now, so I'm just going to do this, okay? I'm talking about this because that black is going to be wet. That impression is going to be wet for quite some time, but so be it. Okay, let's go with kind of one of our darker colors. Let's go with this asteroid umber again. It's pretty dark, okay? Let's tone things in slightly. As I go over those impressions, it's going to be picking up a little bit of the black too, so so be it. I'll just go very lightly, okay? If you go too hard, you're going to be smearing everything, okay? Alright, now, on something like this, I'm just going to try to configure this, you know, in a shape that's going to be the most conducive for the marks that I'm going to be applying. I want something kind of narrow. Alright, so here's the concept here. This is what all of your media, you can stamp this out, and you can be doing it and coloring it with alcohol markers, Copics, or something like that. Where do you color something like this? The difference between coloring and coloring lighting for light is I can color all these rocks the same color, you know, uniform. Okay, these rocks, they're all gray, okay? But if you notice on here, what I've done is I've created lighter areas on these objects, and there's darker areas. What I like to do is I like to stamp these types of things out, and with my other tones, I color in with darker inks the shadows on these. So where is that? It's usually on the bottom sides of the rocks. See this one right here on the sides and bottom of it? And then if I do any highlighting, I add those lighter tones on the tops of them, okay? So shade in the darks, you know, right around here in the shadows too. And, you know, if there was like white light in here, I'm not gonna highlight this one, but okay, so here's what I'm talking about with this. In terms of application, let's hit these rocks down here. And you don't do them like, here, let me take off some of this ink too. Okay, so I want to apply that type of ink on here, okay? So let's leave it a little bit lighter, okay? So see down here, hopefully we can see some kind of difference. But see, I'm kind of right along the water line and the bottom of some of these rocks, just with a really light shade. Why am I taking it like that? Because the ink applies in a much slower progression, so I have a lot more control over it. Everyone wants to rush it, and they say, oh my god, I don't have any control over it. And that's understandable, because they're kind of using their inks too fast, you know, with a really hard application of it. But if you're kind of like dusting color on or something like that, that's what it's kind of akin to. It goes on in a much more controlled manner, and then you have a lot more control over it that way. Not that you have to have everything all controlled, but I think in the end you kind of want that, because you can always add more. So kind of apply a little bit less than what you think you want, and then, you know, when you get familiar with it, you know, if you want to add more, then just keep adding more. But it doesn't have to be like a sudden application of medium or media. Alright, so kind of fine tuning. You see how I'm kind of, you know, toning out the sides like that a little bit. Okay, now let's go back to those reeds. Okay, now see, I added in these shadows down here. If I had these reeds going in there, if I went across them, I know they would blur out, so I'm just holding out towards the end for this final element in here. This is the first, I think this is, I don't know, maybe I did a quarter page before, I'm not sure. Okay. Repetition of imagery. Kind of changing the angle slightly. So that's how I kind of change my angle and height of it to get some variation. See that? Alright, there you have it. Alright, now, I keep saying this, but if you're kind of a follower of this channel, I mean, most of the things I'm using are dye-based inks, you know, Mementos, Distress, Marvy inks, on glossy cardstock. Well, I'm quite surprised at just the amount of depth that, you know, we seemingly can't achieve with matte paper. It looks glossy though, doesn't it? It isn't. It's matte paper. It's like this, you know. This is like the same on both sides, but look at all that ink, and this ink is wet too. But I mean, it doesn't look glossy. It's more of like a satin finish now. But it seems to retain that pretty well. This is a scene that I did yesterday, and this is now completely dry, but see, it has that satiny type of look to it. I think I want to spray this with a matte spray, though, when I do spray it, as opposed to a glossy, but look at this one, it's freshly applied, and I think there's a pretty decent amount of depth in here. You know, you get that glow coming from that yellow underneath. Can you see that yellow underneath here? That's what's making that area glow up there. And here's that white down here. But I think it looks pretty good in terms of our color depth, saturation, and intensity. On white paper, white matte paper, no less, okay? But anyways, there's another mood and media, different look. Here's your glossy cardstock right here, using dye-based inks, okay? And here's another kind of, you know, look of the lake. You can always do these types of transitions in here with pastels or something like that. I guess I can wait for this to dry, probably. I'm guessing, I'm not quite sure, if you can go in here with alcohol markers and do some additional coloring and layering over the top of it. I don't know if it would drag the black around. I guess I'll have to experiment with that sometime. I haven't done that yet. Experimenting with these inks, you know, allowing them to dry and then going into them again. Might be interesting to see, though. But anyways, just, it's really fun stuff. But you do this in colored pencils or something like that. You would stamp, you know, stamp everything out first and then color it in. But you can go for these, like, you know, different types of you know, transitioning backgrounds. Like I said, we used to call them split fountains with silk screen printing. Those are a lot of fun to do. We used to love putting those colors on our silk screens and mixing them together and then dragging them across with that kind of rubber squeegee or whatever. But, okay, let's see. Let me compensate the exposure a little bit. Okay, just compensated the exposure a little bit one stop down, but this is kind of more about how the piece looks, okay? I think it creates a pretty decent mood here and time of day. I'd like to do a little bit more shading in here, but again, I was kind of dragging the impression ink around a little bit, you know, smearing it, and it got smeared a little bit up here, but it didn't matter because I was making those areas a little bit darker, kind of in the four corners anyway, so. Okay, so one more piece for the Mood and Media series. I'm getting pretty close to the end of the alphabet. I don't even remember the number of this one, but I think I could do some other things with some different colors and using this hybrid ink here for some different looks and to give you guys some options as far as how you can use Nature Set number 8, or if you just have these stamps individually, you can do something like that, or with any lakeside type of thing, or, you know, cabin, you know, lakeside cabin would be a good one in here, or something of that sort, you know, doing these kind of reflective things where there's this mirroring of sky and surface, be it water, so, you know, something like this would look great in here, don't you think? You know, in terms of this little cabin right in this area. You can do these things in different colors, yellows and purples, reds and purples too, instead of going into the reds and browns. You know, any kind of transitions like that should be fun. Okay, thanks for watching. If you choose to go ahead and stamp this out and follow along with the video, I hope you had a great time. My fingers and hands I think are a pretty good indicator of the amount of fun that this one was for me. Okay, thanks for watching.